So back in the day when there were lots and lots of formats of film in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I mean lots of formats of film, 35 millimeter, 126, 127, 120, 620, things like that. There was this wide array of cameras that could take different kinds of films, and makers such as Kodak and Ansco. Ansco was a distributor for Agfa. Agfa was a German brand. They had proprietary film sizes, and that's never a good idea. So Kodak made this film size called 620, which, if you're familiar with medium format film, probably sounds a lot like 120, and that's because it's very similar. And Ansco made a size called PB20, which was the same thing as 620. I have here a roll of 120 film. This is ruined film, so it's fine what we're about to do with it. And this is actually a 120 spool, but all of my 620 spools right now are currently in cameras or already have film on them. So what I'm going to show you how to do is respool, because the process is the same, 120 film onto a 620 spool. This will allow you to use your older 620 film cameras, which are probably just fine to use. They're probably in good condition. A lot of those cameras lasted for quite a long time. I have 3 Anscos, all Plenax cameras that take 620 film, which combined cost me about $30. And, well, 2 of them work just fine. The other one's a different story. It's been dropped, but not by me. So anyway, back to what we're going to do. We're going to respool 120 onto a 620 spool. So you take this, and this has to be done in complete dark. And I do this in my bathroom. I don't do this in a dark bag simply because it's easier to do this standing up to let the weight of the spool unwind it. But I'm going to show you this sitting down for demonstration's sake. What you want to do is take and unwind the 120 film from the spool. Now, when we come this way, the film is taped onto the spool, and that's fine. It's easy to work with. Just keep unwinding and unwinding. You don't want to put it directly onto the 620 spool, because then your film will run through the camera backwards. And the problem with that is that when we come to the end of the 120 film, it is not taped on. So if it were to go this way into the camera, it could jam in the camera and cause some serious problems, potentially damaging your camera, definitely ruining your film. So we want to get this completely off the old 120 spool. And these are reusable, so don't just pitch them. If you don't have a reuse for them, stockpile them until you have a dozen or so and sell them on eBay for a couple bucks. At least it'll be a couple bucks you didn't have before. Now we're going to take our 620 spool, hold on to it, because we now need to do the opposite. I know this sounds, am I doing this right? No, I'm not. Sorry, I've only done this a few times, so this is new for me. Next, what we're going to do is simply put the roll right. This worked when I practiced. Okay, now we're going to take the spool and the exposed end. So on 120, the paper at one end says unexposed. That's how you know that you have not taken the photos yet. And at the other says exposed. The exposed end should be at the core of the spool if you have not shot any of the film on the reel, on the roll. So we're going to start this, and here we go. Now the film is going to come and it's going to curl. So we've got to catch up to a little bit. We want to make sure this is nice and snug before we go on. Hold it in place, and that was the hard part. It's a little bit trickier than that in the dark, because you've got to make sure you're feeling for the film. And also you want to make sure, because the 620 spools, the only difference is that the diameter of the spool on the 620 is a little bit smaller than on the 120. So you want to make sure that this is nice and tight as you wrap it, so that you don't exceed the diameter of the 620 spool. This is your process. As you can see, it's pretty painless, and it will add some life to your 620 cameras. This whole process, if you're adept at it, should take about a minute to 90 seconds per roll of film. Not a huge time commitment considering the amount of fun you can have using some of these old cameras. And there we go. It's been re-rolled onto 620.